Welcome. Dive into our content, hit that subscribe button, and ensure notifications are on. Michael was a laid-back individual. He believed in love without the urge to monitor his partner's phone, trusting without requiring passwords, and avoiding paranoia by not snooping through messages. To him, the foundation of a lasting relationship was mutual trust, and he placed his full faith in Camille. Their 6-year partnership seemed to epitomize the perfect couple in the eyes of those around them. Their lives were filled with harmony, shared laughter, and mutual care. The way she laid her head on his shoulder after a long day and how he prepared Sunday breakfasts while she slept were pure and simple gestures that shielded them from the world's troubles. So, when Nolan appeared at their doorstep on a dreary afternoon, wearing a serious expression and weary eyes, Michael was blindsided. Nolan was more than just a friend. He and Michael had shared life experiences since they were 12. They'd faced everything together: school, college, heart-wrenching goodbyes, weddings, a friendship that transcended words. That day, Nolan arrived with neither a smile nor small talk, not even mentioning the upcoming game on Sunday. He got straight to the point, settling onto the living room couch, pausing momentarily as if searching for the least painful way to deliver his news. Michael found it peculiar. "Did something happen?" he inquired, speaking steadily, suspecting it might concern work or a family matter. But then Nolan looked up and dropped a bombshell that left Michael reeling. "I saw Camille last night, with another man." Michael stood there, grappling with the words. He blinked repeatedly, struggling to process the information. "What do you mean?" "Who?" he asked, his voice still measured but with a slight tremor, indicating his racing heart. Nolan took a deep breath, seemingly wishing to escape the conversation but knowing he couldn't. "It was at a downtown bar. I was there with colleagues, and by chance, I saw her. She was with a guy. They were way too close. Laughing, touching, like they were a couple." Michael tried to rationalize it as a misunderstanding. Perhaps he was a friend, a colleague, he mused, seeking an explanation that wouldn't hurt so much. Yet Nolan dashed any hope. "They kissed, Mike. A real kiss. A couple's kiss. There's no mistaking it." Those words echoed in Michael's mind. A kiss. Camille, his Camille, kissing someone else. The world around him seemed to fall silent. The clock's ticking grew deafening. He was at a loss for what to feel first: anger, disbelief, or fear of what the future held. For a few moments, he simply stared at the floor, unable to respond. Everything seemed meaningless. Nolan attempted to ease the tension, knowing it was futile. "I didn't want to tell you, man. I swear. But I couldn't sleep knowing. You don't deserve to be deceived. I know how much you love her." And indeed, Michael did love her deeply. Michael wasn't one for grand declarations on social media, but his actions spoke volumes. From surprise getaways to meticulously crafted lunches on days she returned home stressed from work, he knew every nuance of her being. How her brow furrowed when worried, the music she sought when she needed solitude, even the way she held his hand under the table when out with friends. Now, all of that seemed to be in question. For several minutes, Michael clung to denial. He considered every possibility. Perhaps Nolan was mistaken. Maybe it was someone who just resembled Camille. But he knew Nolan wouldn't jest about such a matter. There was no reason to. Nolan's loyalty had always been unwavering, perhaps excessively so. This only intensified Michael's pain. As he sat there, his heart shattered, something inside him fractured as well. It wasn't merely his trust in Camille that was dissolving, it was the entire concept of love, loyalty, and the security he thought they had built together. It felt as if the very foundation of his life had cracked, and now he wasn't sure he could withstand the truth's weight. He didn't shout. He didn't weep. But internally, a tempest raged. The disappointment stemmed not only from the betrayal itself but from the shock of being let down by the person he trusted most. That afternoon, he remained silent. He simply acknowledged Nolan with a nod, signaling it was time for his friend to leave. Once the door closed, Michael was left alone, gazing at the wall, trying to pinpoint when things had started to unravel, whether it was something he had neglected, some gradual, invisible shift, or if everything had been a facade from the beginning. Doubt creeped in like a slow poison, and he knew that from this moment on, nothing would remain unchanged. That night, Michael found no rest. He lay in bed beside Camille, feeling the weight of her serene breathing as if nothing were amiss, as if everything were still whole. Their bedroom, once his sanctuary, now felt alien, split between two realities. He yearned to believe Nolan was mistaken, that it was all just a colossal misunderstanding, but his mind would not relent. Nolan's words echoed relentlessly, intermingled with memories of Camille, the way she gazed at him, the sound of her laughter, the moments they'd shared. And now, all of it was marred by doubt. The following morning, as Camille prepared for work, Michael scrutinized her every move. She appeared unchanged, calm, carefree, adhering to her usual routine. No hint of guilt, no sign of anxiety. Could someone unfaithful maintain such composure? Or was it so habitual that it no longer fazed her? These questions haunted him as he watched Camille grab her purse and lean in for a quick kiss before leaving. Her lips met his as always, but for the first time, Michael felt nothing. No spark, no warmth. Just an empty gesture from someone who might already be living a separate life unbeknownst to him. The day blurred by. Michael was physically present at work, but his mind wandered elsewhere. He tried to appear normal, but it felt as though he were trapped in a parallel universe. Though never prone to paranoia, something within him demanded proof. He didn't want to confront her without certainty. Thus, he made a decision he never imagined he would. He installed a tracker in Camille's car. A tiny, inconspicuous device he could monitor from his phone. Guilt washed over him as he did it. This wasn't the man he was. But betrayal wasn't something he anticipated from Camille either. So, for the first time, he chose doubt over trust. Initially, nothing unusual occurred. Camille followed her regular routine. Work, errands, home. Every location on the app suggested he was mistaken, that Nolan might have seen someone else, that it was all a misunderstanding. He began to feel remorseful for doubting her. Perhaps he was being unjust. Perhaps he was torturing himself needlessly. But then came Wednesday. That evening, Camille finished her shower earlier than usual. She seemed cheerful, relaxed, as if anticipating something delightful. She took extra care with her appearance for what was supposedly a simple night out with friends. She wore a dress he adored, and the scent of her perfume was more pronounced than usual. Michael silently observed it all. She turned, adjusting her earrings, and casually said, "I'm going out with the girls. See you later, honey." That triggered an alarm within him. He merely smiled and nodded, but as soon as Camille departed, he grabbed his phone and opened the tracker app. The red dot on the map indicated her car was on the move. Michael tracked its journey with a pounding heart, each minute intensifying his anxiety. Then he recognized the destination. It was the same bar. The very spot where Nolan had claimed to have seen Camille with another man. Michael acted on instinct. Grabbing his keys, he rushed out. The drive felt interminable, every red light an agonizing delay testing his patience. When he finally reached his destination, he parked across the street and settled in to wait. He kept his eyes on the bar's entrance, watching patrons come and go, oblivious to the fact that a man sitting in his car was witnessing the unraveling of his life. His vigil was short-lived. Camille emerged from the bar, but she wasn't alone. A man accompanied her. Though they weren't yet touching, there was an unsettling closeness between them. The way she gazed at him, her smile, the slight tilt of her head as they conversed, it was all too intimate, too familiar. Michael felt a knot form in his throat. Though he hadn't witnessed anything conclusive, the truth was already evident to him. He hoped against hope that she might just turn around and drive away alone. But that didn't happen. They walked together to the parking lot. The man opened the car door for her, as if it were a routine gesture. Camille entered without hesitation. As he slid into the driver's seat, Michael observed the interior lights dim. The windows began to fog. Michael closed his eyes momentarily. A bitter taste filled his mouth. His hands trembled. What had been mere suspicion was now confirmed betrayal. He could have driven away, but something compelled him to stay. He needed to look her in the eye, to see Camille's reaction to being caught red-handed. Walking towards the car, the sound of his footsteps seemed distant. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. Nearing the vehicle, he raised his hand and tapped on the window. Silence. Movement inside. For a moment, everything stood still. Then, slowly, the passenger side window rolled down. Camille was there. Their eyes met, and time seemed to freeze. Her shock was palpable. Her carefree expression transformed into one of utter despair. Her lips parted, but no words emerged. The man beside her appeared bewildered, unsure of his next move. Michael stared at Camille for what felt like an eternity. Then, without uttering a word, he began to clap slowly. The sound of his applause reverberated through the quiet parking lot. At that moment, Camille understood the magnitude of her loss. Emerging from the car as if from a nightmare, her eyes wide with panic, Camille's body trembled with guilt. Michael remained still, observing her with an inscrutable expression. The man beside her, Wesley, hesitated before making a misguided attempt to speak. "Hey, man, this isn't what it looks like." Michael responded with a dry, humorless laugh. How many times had he witnessed this scene in movies? The unfaithful partner, caught and scrambling to downplay the obvious. But nothing Wesley could say would alter what was irrevocably etched in Michael's mind. He ignored Wesley, his gaze fixed on Camille, waiting for her next move. She appeared lost. Her mouth opened and closed, searching for words that wouldn't come. How could she explain the unexplainable? How could she mend what was already broken? Michael realized that Camille's regret was not for her actions but for being discovered. Her silence was more telling than any excuse. Maintaining his composure, Michael stepped back and quietly stated, "You don't have to say anything." Camille attempted to approach him, her hand reaching out as if to touch him, but he stepped away. It was a small gesture, yet it spoke volumes. It was an unspoken boundary, an invisible wall that rose between them in that moment. "Michael, I can explain," Camille ventured. "Can you?" he replied, tilting his head as if genuinely contemplating her offer. "Then go ahead." Camille opened her mouth, but no words emerged. What could she possibly say? That it was a mistake? That it meant nothing? That it was merely a moment of weakness? Every potential explanation felt insincere before even leaving her lips. Michael's smile was cold, devoid of warmth. He didn't want to hear it. He didn't need to. No justification could alter the reality of what he had witnessed. Then Michael did something Camille would never forget. He removed the gold wedding band he had worn since their wedding day. He held it briefly, rolling it between his fingers, feeling its weight. A simple ring, yet it encapsulated so many promises, so many vows now shattered. Without hesitation, he let the ring drop to the ground. The metallic clink of gold hitting asphalt resounded like a thunderclap in Camille's ears. In that moment, she realized there was no turning back. Michael turned and walked away. Camille stood there, watching his retreating figure, paralyzed and unable to call out. Her entire body trembled. The night air felt suddenly colder. Wesley attempted to speak, "Camille," but she silenced him with a sharp gesture. She wanted to scream, to cry, to chase after Michael, but she was frozen. Michael got into his car, started the engine, and drove off without a backward glance. Inside the car, silence enveloped him. His thoughts were heavy with the weight of what had transpired. He didn't cry. He didn't pound the steering wheel. He didn't scream. Instead, he felt a growing void within, pressing against his chest in a cruel way. Camille, meanwhile, spent the next few hours wandering the city, trying to pinpoint where everything had gone wrong. She struggled to face the truth: her infidelity wasn't a slip, nor a momentary lapse. It was a choice. And now the consequences of that choice were crashing down on her like an avalanche. When she finally mustered the courage to return home, she was met with a scene that made her throat tighten. The bedroom door was ajar. The bedside lamp remained on. But everything seemed altered. Michael's closet stood open, most of his clothes missing. The bed was neatly made, as if untouched. The bathroom was devoid of his presence, no toothbrush, no personal items scattered on the counter. His absence was palpable. The silence was overwhelming. She picked up her phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. She tried texting. Please pick up. Let me explain. Can we talk? No response. It was only then, sitting on the edge of the bed, alone in an apartment that felt larger and colder than ever, that true despair set in. Michael's reaction wasn't one of anger. There were no screams, no fights, no arguments. There was no final conversation. He just left. And that was far worse. Camille spent days unable to leave the house. Time seemed to stand still. Hours dragged on in piercing silence, and Michael's absence pervaded every corner of the home that once thrived with his presence. She tried to imagine where he might be, whom he might be with, what he might be thinking, but as hard as she searched for answers, all she found was the pain of uncertainty. The calls continued to go straight to voicemail. The messages were left on read with no reply, or sometimes not even that. And it was that silence that tormented her the most. Michael hadn't lashed out, hadn't sought revenge, hadn't demanded explanations. He had vanished from her life, as if she had never existed. And it was that abandonment that began to gnaw at Camille from the inside. Initially, she convinced herself it was just a temporary punishment. She believed that eventually, Michael would return to hear her side. But as the days stretched into weeks, Michael's silence persisted. Camille knew she couldn't reverse the past, yet she clung to the hope that this wasn't truly the end. In a desperate attempt to find answers, she decided to reach out to someone who might provide clarity. That's when Wesley's name came to mind, the man with whom she'd made the mistake that shattered her marriage. He was the catalyst of her downfall. Perhaps by speaking with him, she'd uncover how she ended up here, perhaps she'd find some semblance of logic amidst the chaos. They agreed to meet at a quiet cafe. When Wesley arrived, Camille appeared different. She was worn out, devoid of makeup, her hair haphazardly gathered. The woman who once exuded confidence now seemed to be crumbling within. He sat across from her, uneasy. He expected accusations, but instead saw a broken woman trying to piece together how everything had unraveled. "Why did you reach out to me?" she asked directly, her gaze unwavering. Wesley hesitated. He fiddled with his cup, glanced away, and then took a deep breath before responding. "Because Bianca reached out to me first." His words were like a punch. Camille's eyes widened. "Bianca? My friend Bianca?" "Yeah. She came to see me at work. She said you still thought about me. That you were unhappy in your marriage. That maybe you just needed a little push to realize it." Camille's stomach churned. The world seemed to spin. Bianca. Her confidante, her best friend since their teenage years. The woman who stood by her through everything, who offered advice, who claimed to be on her side, who listened during tough times and made her laugh when she felt like crying. Bianca. You're telling me that all of this was set up by her? Wesley nodded, looking troubled. She said you'd been distant, that you were confused, and that maybe seeing us together would spark something in you. I thought it was strange, but I went along with it. I admit I still had feelings. But now I see I was just part of a plan. Camille leaned back in her chair, bringing a hand to her mouth. She struggled to process the revelation. Each memory with Bianca now felt tainted. Every conversation, every piece of advice, even the smiles seemed to carry a different meaning. She recalled the day she had confessed her insecurities to her friend. Bianca had been compassionate, understanding. She'd said things like, "Sometimes your heart needs to feel something new," or, "You have to think about yourself, not just him." Now it all made sense. Bianca had sown the seeds of doubt. Camille returned home feeling as though she'd emerged from a fog. Her head spun. Her heart felt heavy. She spent hours on the couch, staring into space, replaying every detail, every conversation, every moment with Bianca. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized she'd been manipulated. Bianca wasn't just a friend dispensing bad advice. She had orchestrated everything. She had nudged Camille towards another man. And the question that echoed in her mind was, why? Camille couldn't stop thinking about Bianca. She felt the weight of every conversation they'd shared, every piece of guidance her friend had offered. Her best friend, her confidant for years, the person who had been there through every significant moment. And now the betrayal came from a place she never could have imagined. But why? What did Bianca gain from dismantling her marriage? That thought gnawed at Camille, and by the end of the night, after much hesitation, she grabbed her phone and sent Bianca a terse, straightforward message, "I need to see you. Now." The reply was almost immediate. "At my place or yours?" Camille looked around, shivering. She didn't want Bianca setting foot in her home. The place that no longer felt like Michael's sanctuary felt vulnerable, tainted by all that had transpired. "At yours?" The drive to Bianca's apartment was the longest of Camille's life. Every minute in the car felt suffocating. Her heart thudded in her chest, palms damp with sweat. She was on the brink of uncovering something that could deepen her despair. Upon arrival, Bianca stood at the door, arms crossed, wearing the look of someone who anticipated this confrontation. There was no fear in her demeanor. Instead, she seemed almost satisfied. Camille entered without engaging in pleasantries, declining the wine Bianca offered, ignoring the familiar comfort of the couch. "This wasn't a social call. Why did you do it?" Camille's voice was sharp, bypassing any pretense. Bianca offered a slight smile, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. "Do what?" she replied coyly. "You know what I'm talking about," Camille pressed, stepping closer. "You orchestrated everything. You convinced Wesley to approach me again. You sowed seeds of doubt in my marriage. You drove me toward a decision that obliterated everything I cherished. I want to know why." Bianca sighed, crossing her legs and resting her chin on her hand, drawing out her response as if savoring the betrayal. "You always had everything, Camille," she finally said, her voice unnervingly calm. "The perfect husband, the perfect life, the kind of love people only dream about." Camille was bewildered. "I was just the friend," Bianca continued. "The one on the sidelines, watching you smile, watching Michael treat you like a queen. You never knew what it was like for me, seeing the man I wanted love someone else." The ground seemed to vanish beneath Camille's feet. Silence engulfed them. Michael. Bianca had loved him all along. Camille felt a chill spread through her body. The realization hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath, her balance, and any hope that this was a misunderstanding. "You destroyed my marriage because you wanted him to leave me?" Camille's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Bianca's smile broadened, darkening her expression. "I didn't want him to leave you," she admitted. "I wanted him to see the real you. I wanted him to feel revulsion when he looked at you. Because I knew once he learned the truth, he could never love you the same way again." A lump formed in Camille's throat. Bianca had achieved her goal. Michael was gone, seemingly for good. But he didn't choose Bianca, Camille realized through her tears. Bianca finally averted her gaze. "No," she confessed. "But if he couldn't be mine, I made sure he wouldn't be yours either." In that moment, Camille understood she had lost more than just Michael. She had lost everything. Her betrayal wasn't a simple mistake, it had been orchestrated. And now, there was no path back. Thank you for engaging with this story. If you found it compelling, please subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to stay updated on our latest content. Until next time.